NBA is changing. You know, it's not the same old thing. You're seeing a lot of the younger teams starting to get out front, and those teams have depth. You know, they got a lot of defenders. They got multiple scorers. They got size. They have length, and I think with our team over the last couple years, they've been able to grow and grow and grow and grow. And then you add like a couple vets to the team, and me looking at it, I see the potential. You know, I see what it could be. Watching the games, you know, I see somebody like Tumani, and I'm like, I want to play with him. You know? I see Denny, and I'm like, I want to play with him. I see Shea. I was here with Shea as a rookie, and I'm looking at Shea, and I'm like, I want to play with this Shea. You know, I see superstar level talent point guard like Scoot Henderson, and I'm like, I can help him. You know, I can be a part of his journey. And when I look at this team like as a whole, and what it could be, and that's like I said, from a distance, and now being up close and being around the team more, like I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. And I really think, you know, this team has the potential to do the same as a lot of these other up-and-coming teams are doing, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Hey Rip City, this is Scoot Henderson, and it's time to open a briefcase with Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 169 of The Briefcase, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I am Casey Holdahl, and this is the last off-season 2025 edition of The Briefcase. The season starts on Monday with Media Day, leading into the first practice on Tuesday. The season is here. It is time to go. Unfortunately for the Trailblazers, already some unfortunate injury news that is going to affect the team into the regular season. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the storylines going into training camp for the Portland Trailblazers. Also discuss the rally with Damian Lillard last weekend at Pioneer Courthouse Square and the new video boards that have been installed at Moda Center on this edition of The Briefcase presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Well, I was all prepared to talk about all kinds of the storylines going into the Trailblazers 2025 training camp, but having a bit of news breaking on Friday afternoon before training camp starts, team announcing that Scoot Henderson will be out for at least the next 4 to 8 weeks after sustaining a tear in his hamstring in his left leg. 4 to 8 weeks before returning to basketball activities, not necessarily even 48 weeks before returning to actually playing. So that means that Scoot Henderson will miss at least the first couple weeks of the 2025-26 season for the Trailblazers, will miss the entirety of training camp, which is an incredible bummer. It sounds like he was playing at the practice facility sometime this week, had an injury. I mean, stuff like that happens. I'm sure you've seen other players have gone out with injuries, participating in off-season workouts. And unfortunately, Scoot Henderson fell by one of those injuries. So kind of before we even get to the starting line, you know, a lot of, I think, the conversation going into the season, or at least in the training camp, was after the acquisition of Jrue Holiday. Is Jrue Holiday going to start a point guard? Is Scoot Henderson going to start a point guard? Are they going to start together? And now that's not really even a topic of conversation anymore, because Scoot Henderson is going to be out, as I mentioned, for at least 4 weeks. And again, it's just 4 weeks before he can return to play. When you're talking about a hamstring injury, a hamstring tear, you know, that's something that has to basically mend itself before you can get back out onto the court. Like, it's not like if you have a sprained ankle, you can kind of tape it up. You can't tape up a hamstring. You know, it's not like you can, you know, maybe like mitigate that by you know, playing a different way. You know, hamstrings, I mean, they affect you when you run. You're getting up and down the court. Like, you're going to feel a hamstring injury if you have one, particularly a hamstring tear. So, you know, they're going to have to let that completely heal before Scoot gets back out there. And because of that, that means he's going to be pretty much inactive going into the regular season. And so, you know, he's going to miss training camp, bare minimum. And then 4 weeks from September 26th, when I'm recording this today, is obviously October 26th. That's a few games into the regular season. And that's just for returning to basketball activities. Again, that's not for returning to play. So he's going to miss the entirety of training camp. So he's going to have to get into shape, or at least into NBA game shape, after he's able to return to the court. And then sometime after that, he'll be able to actually start playing games, or practicing and then playing games. So, I mean, I'm not going to speculate too awful much, but I mean, 4 weeks, that's just for him to return to basketball activities. So you're looking at more time after that. And that's the best case in terms of how long it's going to take for him to get back into actual NBA game shape after everyone else already went through training camp and has already gone through preseason and is already playing in regular season games. So again, I don't want to speculate too awful much, but 4 to 8 weeks is, I would say, at the low end of probably what is going to be Scoot's availability to actually play in games. And that's a real bummer. Scoot going into his third season, a lot of the talk was, once Anthony Simons got traded, was, that obviously opens up quite a bit of time for Scoot. Obviously, the team brings in Drew Holiday when they trade Anthony Simons. So, you bring in a starting caliber point guard, two guard, who brings a whole lot to your team defensively, experience wise. So I think that was probably going to be a battle at training camp anyways. And I mean, I think, the what Chauncey Billups talked about at the beginning of last season, I think was going to apply to this season, which is that no one's spot is guaranteed. You come into training camp and compete for starting spots, and whoever gets that spot is the player who played the best. We don't necessarily care about your contract. We don't care about where you're at in your career. We are going to award playing time by who plays the best. And so I do think there was going to be a competition between Scoot and Drew Holiday at training camp to define which one of those players is going to start at point guard. But now, obviously, Scoot not being available for the start of the season means that it's almost a guarantee at this point that Drew Holiday is going to start. So basically, you can almost probably pencil in Drew Holiday starting at point guard, Toumani Camara starting at the 3-2-3, Denny Avdia starting at the 3-4, and Donovan Clingan starting at the 5. So that basically leaves one spot open for it could be Shaedon Sharpe, it could be Jeremy Grant, it could be Matisse Thybulle if they wanted to go super ultra defensive lineup. It could be Chris Murray. They've got quite a few different guys to switch into that spot. But so at this point, I was going to talk about how, you had three spots, Toumani, Denny, and Donovan, who are basically locked in as starters, and then the other two were going to be competitions. Now I think that pretty much gets whittled down to whoever is starting at the 2-3. I'm guessing Drew Holiday is now going to start at point guard, which I think Drew Holiday was probably going to start at point guard beginning of the season, nevertheless. But with Scoot's injury, that basically assures that Drew will be the starting point guard once the season starts. And also, I would also say, too, that obviously, Drew is a longtime veteran. I believe he's 35 or 36 years old. So he's played a lot of basketball. Look at his game logs, though, through the last couple seasons. He is a starter in the NBA. He has not been coming off the bench in his time in Boston, in his time in Milwaukee. He has been a starter. And so I don't know that coming into Portland was going to be the situation where he stopped being a starter. Like I always felt pretty confident that, if he came out and played well and played better than Scoot, that he was going to get that starting spot. And now obviously that is really kind of a moot point until at least Scoot gets back and up to speed. Also, if Drew is a starter, supplanting a starter during the middle of the season, unless there's an injury, seems rather unlikely to me. So that might just mean that Scoot is likely to be coming off the bench for a while once he does return, assuming that everyone else is healthy. So, just a bummer for Scoot, a guy who's put in so much work and really, had an opportunity to come into this season and really kind of show what he can do. I think that, I don't want to speak for Scoot, but I would imagine that there's probably parts of Scoot that feels like, he maybe hasn't had the opportunity that he would like in order to be a starter in this league after getting drafted out of the Ignite. And, I feel like this season was maybe his opportunity to come in and show that. And if he could get that starting spot, then great. And if not, then that's okay too, particularly with Drew Holiday, a guy who's going to be a Hall of Famer being on that same roster. But still, this was, I think, the most of a clear runway that Scoot had in terms of having the opportunity to kind of seize that starting spot. And now that's not the case anymore. So that is a bummer for Scoot, bummer for the Trailblazers. I know a lot of people were really excited about seeing what Scoot can do this season, myself included. So that is not great. Injuries are going to happen. It's part of the game. But you would really had hoped that we could got to the start of the regular season without any significant injuries. And obviously, Damian Lillard, out with his Achilles injury. I do not expect Dame to play this season. So that is 2 point guards on your team right there who are not going to be available for at least probably the first month of the season and maybe a little bit more. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how that affects the rest of the roster. I think you probably have to look to other guys to create with Scoot out. So when Drew's on the bench, is Denny Avdia. Is he kind of the main creator? Has Tumani gotten to a place in his game where he can be a little more of a creator at that position as well? Is that a situation where Yang Hansen can come in and maybe, get some minutes because of his ability to make plays? I think, Hansen's ability to do that at the NBA level, we obviously saw it at Summer League and it looked great. The NBA is a completely different animal. So seeing where he's at in terms of those skills, I think will probably define whether or not he's able to get onto the court. I think obviously Scoot being out probably helps that situation, but if Rob Williams is healthy, then I'm guessing that spot is going to go to him and for backing up Donovan Clingan. So we'll kind of see how they work this thing out. Hopefully, Scoot's not out, much longer than that initial timeline. But it also hamstring injuries, as I mentioned, incredibly fickle. Like you have to be careful with them. It's not an injury you can really play through. You just have to let it heal and get back out there when you're feeling better. So that is kind of one of the main storylines, or was one of the main storylines heading into training camp that is kind of off the table as of right now. I think there's other things you look at as well. I think Shaedon, a guy too, is this the season that Shaedon becomes like a verified starter? He's obviously had opportunities to start in his first couple seasons. Chauncey last year was, made no bones about it. He felt like Shaedon wasn't doing what he needed to do, particularly on the defensive end, and he benched him at that point in time. Well, benches him is not the right way. He brought him off the bench. So, like that's something that I think, is very much in play right now. What is Shaedon's role on this team at the start of the season? I think you look at this Trailblazers team and you feel really good about where they're at defensively. If you have Drew, you have Tumani, you have Donovan, you have Denny, all very good defensive players. I mean, Drew, Donovan, and Tumani are all defensive caliber players. Denny right there with them. And so you also look at that lineup and you think like, well, where's the scoring going to come from? And so, maybe the situation where, Shaedon gets a start because he does bring that pop offensively and you have a lot of really good defenders around him to where you can kind of make up for any issues there. Perhaps Shaedon had this offseason and as he continues to mature and improve his game, has improved defensively on that side of the ball. He's got all the tools. I think a lot of it is just about kind of the understanding and knowing your place in a team defense. So, my guess would be that Shaedon gets the start on opening night, but again, I think that's really in flux, really in play, and really kind of depends on how or what kind of style of basketball they want to play. Also, I think it depends too if you think that Tumani is a 2 or if you think he's a 3, if you think Denny is a 3 or a 4. I'm of the opinion that Tumani is a 2-3 and that Denny is a 3-4. So on one hand, you could probably slot Tumani at the 2, Denny at the 3, Jeremy at the 4. That's a real possibility. I could absolutely see that being their starting lineup on opening night. But it does seem to me that Shaedon gives you kind of something that no one else on the roster gives you. And also, I mean, I just want to this season is about getting wins. I don't think this is necessarily a development season for the Blazers, or at least they're not looking at it that way. Obviously, they need to develop their young players, but they don't look at this as, in my opinion, from what I've been able to glean, they don't really look at this season as well, let's kind of let's give guys minutes and see what they can do, and as a way to help their maturation. I think it's more, we're ready to go now. We feel like we can be competitive now. We want these guys to continue to develop. We believe they can develop, but we're trying to get wins now. We're not going to sacrifice wins for development. That is my take on the situation right now. Perhaps I'm wrong, but pretty good about reading these things. So that is kind of what I feel like the team's mentality is going into the 2025-26 season. And so if Shaedon is the guy they feel like gives them the best chance to win games, he's going to get the start. If it's more like we feel like Shaedon is important for our future, so even though maybe there's someone else who we feel like is playing better, we're still going to start Shaedon. I don't think that's going to happen. So it's going to be on Shaedon to come in and take that spot. And I think he can do it. But I think, again, that's what it's going to be. I don't think it's no one is going to necessarily get minutes because they want to see what they can do. They want to see you then develop. And I would say the same thing for Hansen. Obviously, team selects Hansen with the 16th pick. You see what he does at Summer League. Everyone is excited about it. A guy who I feel like a lot of us feel like has real star potential in this league. But he's a 19-year-old kid who is coming out of the Chinese Basketball Association, where the level of play is not what you're going to see in the NBA. Granted, he looks great. He looked great at Summer League. I think he looked a lot better than a lot of us assumed he would. I speak for myself here. Hansen looked way better than I thought he would at Summer League. I thought it might take him a little time to get up to speed. I thought the game might be a little too fast for him. Was not at all the case. I felt like he looked comfortable the entire time. So that's a really good marker for Hansen. But also, the Summer League is not the NBA regular season. It's just not. So I think you're going to probably see in preseason what Hansen can do. And if he's able to come out there and comport himself well and not, and if the game doesn't look too fast for him, it doesn't look too physical for him, I'm actually the physical side of it. I've never really been concerned about when it comes to Hansen. Then I think, perhaps that opens up some minutes for Hansen if he's able to do the things they need him to do, particularly with Scoot out. But again, I don't think they're going to give minutes to Hansen because they just want to see what Hansen can do out there. If Rob is healthy, he's obviously a phenomenal defensive center. This team is making their bones on defense. Donovan Clingan, already one of the elite rim protectors in the NBA. So Hansen's going to have to come in and earn minutes at backup center or at center. I mean, I guess, in theory, he could compete for the starting spot. I would be shocked if Donovan wasn't the starting center on opening night. Donovan has looked great. What I've seen from him in this offseason is really slimmed down. So, that I guess that's a competition too, but I mean, I'm not at all expecting that. But the point being that like you're going to have to come in and earn it this year. They're not going to necessarily give guys minutes just because they want to develop. They're trying to win. They feel like they have the talent to win, to be competitive, and that's what they're going to set out to do. So if your hope is like, well, I hope they just give Hansen minutes because I think he's important for this team going forward. I want to see him develop. I think I'm going to do the same. I want to see the same for Shaedon. I'm just telling you now, folks, I don't think that's going to happen. You're going to have to come in and earn it and play well to earn those minutes in order to win games. It's not about development at this point. I mean, it's always about development, but the majority of it is about winning now, not necessarily about developing players for the future. So we'll see how that plays out throughout the course of training camp. And then that also kind of leads to a discussion too of Hansen. And is he able to crack the rotation? That's kind of my other big storyline or area of interest going into training camp. Because again, what we saw from him at Summer League was really encouraging. Again, at no point in time do I feel like Hansen was a liability on the court during Summer League. Teams are obviously going to try to attack him in the NBA in ways that they wouldn't necessarily do in Summer League. You don't have time to scout. You don't have time to have more detailed game plans. You don't really have time to talk more about like trying to negate one specific guy. But he is going to see that in the NBA regular season. So how he's able to deal with that, how he's able to communicate with his teammates throughout the course of training camp. I imagine that at this point, Hansen's English is much improved than it was from Summer League. I know he's obviously been here in town, I think probably almost since the end of Summer League. So I'm sure that the communication piece is probably improved considerably since we saw him last at Summer League. Fitness-wise, I'm sure that, going through, workouts with NBA players, even informal workouts, and then over the course of training camp, I'm guessing that he will every big, especially the rookie year, is going to take some time to get up to speed in terms of their fitness. Like it's just a faster game. The way you have to play in the NBA, particularly as a big, being able to not only defend in the paint but also get out to the 3-point line, like that requires a level of fitness that for guys who are 7 foot and taller, can be a little bit difficult. So like it's going to take Hansen a little bit of time to get to that point. But if he's able to do that this season, and if he's able to create even half as well in the NBA as he did Summer League, I think you're probably going to see Hansen out there a bit. And again, I think, some of that is also dependent on Rob's availability as well. Um, because Rob is great. He's a really good player. He absolutely will help this team if he's healthy and able to play consistently. And while I loved what I saw out of Hansen at Summer League, I also have a hard time believing that a rookie playing his first high level NBA basketball is going to be able to supplant a guy like Rob Williams if he's healthy. Because I mean, I won. That's how highly I think of Rob. I think he's great. And two, it just goes to show that like the NBA it's unlike any other league in the world. It's tougher than any other league in the world. And what works in Europe and China and Australia, sometimes it's not necessarily work in the NBA. I don't think that's going to be the case for Hansen. I am incredibly bullish on Hansen, but I just think it's probably going to take a little bit of time. So assuming that he's going to be able to come in and play minutes right away, particularly by, supplanting guys like Robert Williams, I have a little hard time seeing that, but that's a good problem to have. And you also don't want to necessarily throw too much at Hansen to begin with anyways. Like, I don't, I've said this over and over and over again throughout the years that just throwing minutes at players and just letting them sink or swim in the NBA is not the way to get better in the NBA. Like it's just not. In fact, it's more detrimental, in my personal opinion, to throw a guy out there and just continue to let him struggle because you feel like more minutes are going to be advantageous. Sometimes that's true. A lot of times it's not because if you're not playing well, if you're not confident in the way you're playing, if you're getting embarrassed out there, particularly in regular season games with national audiences, that is no kind of path to success. So, I think the team is probably also going to, I wouldn't say protect Hansen, but like they're going to put him in situations where he can be successful and they're not going to put him in spots where they feel like he's going to have to do things that he's not ready to do in order to help the team win. Like they're just not going to do that. So those are kind of the big things that I'm going to be looking out for at training camp. Media Day is on Monday. It will be streaming interviews with Joe Cronin, Chauncey Billups, Dwayne Hankins to start the day, leading into interviews with multiple players. Probably not all the players, but I would guess all of the guys who are going to be in the regular rotation and guys who just have some time. My understanding is it's going to be a bit of a shorter media day this year. So check out trailblazers.com for that starting Monday morning. I think around 8:30 is when things will start getting going at Moda Center in terms of the interviews. We'll have all the execs and then a number of players come through as well. So definitely check that out on Monday morning, 8:30, trailblazers.com. We'll be streaming live there. We'll be streaming on Facebook as well. Check us out wherever you watch your streaming stuff at. But it should be interesting. I think quite a few questions for guys going into this offseason. A bit of a new look team. Obviously, you got 2 new starters on the team, bare minimum 2 new starters. So I think that, a lot to pay attention to, a lot to be excited about, and just a lot of newness. I think that's kind of one of the things that I've been talking about with people kind of heading into the start of training camp. It's just, it feels like a lot of new things on this team. And, granted, you bring Dame back, so that's an old thing that's new. But, you obviously the first year that Anthony Simons hasn't been on this team in some time, you got Drew Holiday, you got Donovan Clingan, who's entering his second season, you got Hansen, just a lot of interesting things and also new coaching staff as well. Obviously Chauncey Billups coming back, but almost an entirely rebuilt assistant coaching staff and a lot of guys who I think are really sharp and I think are really going to bring a lot of interesting, perspectives and experiences to the table as well. So I think the team is going to look different on the court because of that as well. I mean, when you add 3 new assistants to your team, along with Nate Bjorkgren, who joined last year, I think that, I think there's reason to believe that there might be a few changes in store, or at least some new approaches and some new plays and some new schemes and just a different way to approach a few things. So it should be a very interesting training camp. I'm really looking forward to it. And it starts Monday with Media Day, 8:30 on trailblazers.com and streaming as well on Facebook, team's Facebook account, which is Facebook/Trailblazers. So check us out there. Well, even though I was unable to attend, I thought it was great to see the reception at the rally last weekend for Damian Lillard and just for the Trailblazers as well. I think obviously part of it was an opportunity to welcome Dame back to Portland before the start of training camp. Though I also feel like it was important for the entire team to kind of get together and have an ability to kind of celebrate and not to celebrate Dame necessarily, but just celebrate kind of the enthusiasm about the Trailblazers in Portland. I feel like people are more optimistic and more excited about this team now than they've been in 5 or 6 seasons, and I think there's a multitude of reasons for that. I just thought it was great to one like get back into Portland and for Dame to be able to kind of get that love that I know that people have for him. And I obviously the turnout was fantastic. It rained in the morning, but it got sunny before the start of the rally, which is perfect Portland summer style. I really appreciate how many people came out and supported both Dame and the team in general. I thought it was great for, the players outside of Dame to see kind of how important the Trailblazers are to the city and also like how much support you will get as a player and as a person if you embrace Portland as your home, as Dame has done. And I think that, you know, for as many people to come out and be as enthusiastic as they were about Dame's return, a guy who's not even going to be able to play this season, I think shows the other guys on the roster like, hey, this really means something to the people in this city. And if I really buy in and I make Portland and Oregon and Southwest Washington my home, if I always put my best foot forward, if I sacrifice for this team and if I really kind of do everything I can to be successful here in Portland, that is going to be appreciated in ways that might not necessarily be the case in other markets. And I think, the other guys on the team see that. And I think when you see the kind of appreciation and love and respect that fans in Portland have for Dame, I think other guys on the roster see that. And I think it makes them want to kind of try to match that same desire and willingness and love for the city and for the Trailblazers and for what is possible here. And to not view this as a place where it's like, well, but there's really not a whole lot going on. So that's why people like the team. And it's like, there's some truth to that, I guess, but that's not really why people love the Portland Trailblazers. They love them because they're our team and they inhabit a place in this community that is really important to the way that I think people view themselves as members of Oregon, Southwest Washington, the Pacific Northwest. So, I think that while it was awesome to celebrate Dame and his return, I think for me, kind of maybe the more enduring part of that rally is just that, again, it shows the other guys in the team like, wow, like this really means a whole lot to these people. They're out here on a Sunday, a month and a half before we're even going to play a game to show appreciation for a player who is not going to play this year. Like, I think, again, I think that really, that kind of sets a baseline for what Portland Trailblazers basketball means to fans and the city. And I think it really shows that to the players as well. And I know that like, we have great fan support. I know that the players know that. Obviously they play in at Moda Center and we have great crowds, on a night in, night out basis. You go on the road, we got great support on the road. But to see kind of outside of like an actual game event, how excited people get about the Portland Trailblazers, particularly if you conduct yourself in a certain way, the way that Dame has done. And granted, part of that is because Dame has been a phenomenal player for the Trailblazers, and that's really important. But again, I think, even part of that is the way that he has embraced the city and being a Portland Trailblazer and it not being like a way station on to bigger and better things. It being like, no, this is where I live, this is my city, this is my team, and I'm going to treat it that way, not like a job that I'm at for 8 to 9 months and then I go back to wherever I'm actually from. Like I think that means something to people in this city. It means a lot to the fans. And I think you see that at a rally like they had, the Dame reunion rally on Sunday. And I think again, more important for me is the other players seeing that and seeing how important this team is, and that if they do things the right way, even if they don't necessarily reach that ultimate goal, they will be loved and respected and appreciated in this town for as long as that relationship endures. So I thought that was great. Shout out to everyone for coming out. Shout out to Dame for getting up and doing a great job and really also making it a team event too. Like I know that there's probably you don't want it to all be about one guy. And that's kind of one Dame's things too, is that like, you want to be celebrated. Obviously, Dame inhabits an incredibly important place in this community, but it's about the team and it's about improving as a team and coming back to Portland on a team that is going to give this franchise a chance to be successful. I think that's all great. I think that rally really kind of encapsulated that and just a really good way to kind of kick off this new iteration of the Portland Trailblazers. Like I just think that, that was a nice way to kind of dip your toe back into the Blazers. And now we're going to have, a couple weeks of training camp and preseason rolling right into what is hopefully a very interesting and exciting regular season. So shout out to everyone else for coming out on Sunday, even though I could not be there. I was bummed out to not make it, but I had other things going on. So everyone who did show up, way to go. Appreciate it. We'll see you at Moda Center here soon. For also, FanFest is on October 7th this year, presented by Toyota. I'm just going to read some press release here. October 4th, Saturday, October 4th at 2 p.m. at Moda Center. Fans are invited to attend the free family-oriented event for the first chance to see this year's Trailblazers as they host an open scrimmage in preparation for the 2025-26 season. There's something for all fans of all ages at the celebration, including food, prizes, games, and more. You can learn more about the event and register for tickets at trailblazers.com/fanfest. Every year, free scrimmage, FanFest, chance to come down, check out the team on the court, see a bit of a scrimmage, sit maybe a little bit closer to the floor than maybe you might necessarily be able to afford during the regular season. Always one of the nice parts about FanFest. Get to say hello to the players, meet some of the new players, some of the new coaches as well. Always a good time, always a lot of fun, and this year presented by Toyota. So once again, that is Saturday, October 4th, 2 p.m. at Moda Center. I believe doors will open at 1 p.m. at Moda Center. You should register for free tickets at trailblazers.com/fanfest, though we're not going to turn people away, but it would be very helpful if you would register. It just makes everything much easier. So show up a little bit early as well. Get a chance to sit as close to the court as possible. Great family event. Bring the kids. Bring your parents. Bring your grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. It's always a fun event. FanFest presented by Toyota. Saturday, October 4th, 2 p.m. So quite a few events happening on the weekend of October 4th, including Price is Right Live, which is the hit interactive stage show that gives eligible individuals a chance to hear their names called to come on down and win at Spirit Mountain Casino. Prizes may include appliances, vacations, and possibly a new car. Play classic games just like on the television's longest running and most popular game show, from Plinko to Cliffhangers to The Big Wheel and even the famous Showcase. Playing to a near sold-out audiences for more than 20 years, The Price is Right Live has entertained millions of guests and given way to more than $15 million in cash and prizes. If you're a fan of Price is Right on TV, you'll no doubt love this exciting, live, non-televised, on-stage version of the show. I have actually been to a Price is Right Live before. It is fantastic. It's a lot of fun, particularly if you're a fan of the show, as I am. Shout out to Bob Barker, one of the best to ever do it. Check out Price is Right Live at Spirit Mountain Casino that weekend. One show is on Friday, October 3rd at 8 p.m., and there's another show on Saturday, October 4th at 3 p.m. Price is Right Live at Spirit Mountain Casino. Elevate your game. And finally, the team has been working on it for some time now. They announced that they were putting in new screens on the end zones and also updating the big screen at center court quite a while ago. They've been working on it all summer long. Finally debuted to the media this week. It looks absolutely fantastic. The highlight of the project is a transformation of the iconic hustle boards and Stat Central displays, an innovative feature that set Moda Center apart when it opened in 1994, that have been upgraded to dynamic LED displays totaling 7,520 square feet of screen space, more than 1.5 times the square footage of an NBA court. The new screens, alongside with ANC's LiveSync venue control software, will allow for real-time, in-depth stat displays, video displays featuring player personality videos, and in-game entertainment. The upgrades feature prominent video boards in each corner, as you can see, with a ribbon board display between the two corners at each end. Each corner board will measure 24 feet by 50 feet and feature over 1 million pixels, with the ribbon screen also boasting 1 million pixels as well. Additionally, rear-facing LED screens will be added to the back of the new video boards to ensure that fans throughout the arena have clear views of game content. And what that means is, so those big square boards that are up in the 300 level, there's actually screens on the back of that board, allowing fans that are in that area to look at both that board and the court as well, which is a really cool thing. That same thing with, they put in screens at the bottom of the big screen, so fans that are sitting closer to the screen, to the floor, can actually just look up rather than having to try to crane their necks up to see things. So trying to create better sight lines for everyone in the arena, from people in the court side to people in the 300 level. The Moda Center center hung scoreboard is also enhanced, increasing the size by 56% to 2,092 square feet of seamless LED displays and more than 13.5 million pixels. The updated design features continuous screens from corner to corner and a new underbelly display that will enhance visibility for courtside and lower bowl fans, as I just mentioned. They had a walkthrough for media this week. It looks fantastic. I think it's really going to improve the experience at Moda Center for games. You know, I've been to every single NBA arena. I've seen a lot of game ops. I've seen a lot of what other teams are doing in terms of their video displays. And, you know, the Blazers, the former, you know, what they had was okay, but, you know, it was towards the bottom of what you're going to see in a NBA arena in 2025. Now, much needed updates. It looks fantastic. I think obviously the big screen video board, taking off those sides to where like it's video all the way around the board, I think is really cool. And then those end zones, both the big square or rectangular screens and then the ribbon that connects the two of those, it's gonna, I mean, one, there's going to be a bunch of cool stat stuff on there. It's going to unlock just a whole bunch of opportunities for different visual displays during games, you know, ways to get fans pumped up. You know, I think I posted a video of one of the displays just from the Blazers win graphic that they use. It was really cool. You know, it reminds me a lot of, you know, what the changes that they've made, or not, I guess changes because it's a new building, what they've done at Intuit Arena, Clippers building in Los Angeles, having those side end zone displays, doing a lot of like lineup information, stat information, also opportunities to have like in-game activations as well. Just a real upgrade for the building. I think that fans are really going to enjoy it. I know that I'm not even just fans too. I think media is going to enjoy it as well. A lot more places to see the score, which is always one of my pet peeves when we're on the road. A lot of times, you know, once the quarter ends, a lot of the visuals get flipped over to something else, be they ads or whatever. And anytime I have to look around the arena to find out what the actual score is, that bothers me. That is not it's never really been an issue at Moda Center. It's definitely not going to be an issue now. It is an issue in some other arenas out there. I won't say which ones, but there's some places where do a better job of displaying the score, guys. It's why we're all here, to see the team win or lose. So it's absolutely going to improve the experience at Moda Center for Blazer games, and eventually for other games as well. Obviously, WNBA will be able to utilize that. I imagine that at some point in time, maybe some concerts will also utilize those displays. I know that the WWE, a lot of times, they'll take kind of the display options in an arena and use that for their show. So it should really enhance the fan experience. And obviously, you know, for the Trailblazers, that is the primary reason for doing that. But I also think too that it really just enhances the building in general. Same thing goes too for some of the new food options we're going to have at Moda Center this year. Taste of Moda is on October 7th. Fortunately, I will not be able to go because I will be on a flight to San Francisco for the first preseason game versus Golden State. But there's going to be a number of new food options as well. Ranch pizza is moving down to the concourse. Pizzicato. Nacho is going to be there as well. So a lot of really good improved concessions every year. They roll out a few new concessions. It's always just to kind of keep some new options in terms of dining at Moda Center. There also, you got your grab and goes and your kind of your standard, you know, arena foods, which are also great as well. So just a continued improvement of the fan experience at Moda Center. And I think that, you know, that's something that the team is always really focuses on during the offseason. I feel like they've made a lot of improvements in that regard this year. Also, I should mention too that the new video boards, and the upgraded jumbotron, that is one of the first projects of the private public partnership between the Trailblazers, Moda Center, and the city of Portland. So I think that goes to show that like that money is being put to good use, something that is going to impact the city in a positive way in an arena that is one of the main meeting places in Oregon and Southwest Washington. So you'll obviously have a chance to see those new boards at FanFest on October 4th. I guess they're probably up there now. So if you've been to concerts, you've probably seen them. I think sometimes they have the curtains down, so maybe you can't see them. And if they're not getting used, I don't really know how exciting it is. But once you see those boards getting used, I'm sure that'll happen at FanFest October 4th. I think you guys are really going to be impressed by how they look. It's really an improvement. I know people love the hustle board and the stat board. Those are not going away. They're going to be put somewhere. Team just doesn't know where just yet because they're big. And it's a little bit difficult to find a space to put those things that makes sense. And again, you kind of just see them at the roof and, it's a square and you think, it's good size, but then you can put that anywhere, right? It's like once you actually get up close to it, you realize how big those boards are. And those are not things that you can just put anywhere, not only in terms of the ability to actually just set it somewhere, but even getting it into a building can be its own issue. So those things, they're absolutely not getting rid of the old hustle board and the old Stat Central. They will be somewhere. We're just not sure exactly where just yet because, again, they're huge and it's a little difficult to find a space that fits, that makes sense in order to put those things. But rest easy. They're not going away. They're just going to go somewhere else. And that's going to do it for this edition of The Briefcase. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, season starts on Monday with Media Day. So the frequency of briefcases and also Blazers Balcony, which is coming back, will improve considerably. So like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on Apple Music. Wherever you listen, wherever you watch. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, now is the time to subscribe because, as I mentioned, more episodes, more interviews, more discussion as training camp begins and we roll that into preseason and then into the 2025-26 regular season. Thank you for joining me. As always, I am Casey Holdahl. Go Blazers.